In the last session, we covered the load balancer, right? So we discussed about elastic load balancer. We have seen the different types of load balancer, and we hosted a website using application load balancer. That's what we covered in the last session. So in today's session, let's talk about a service called AutoScaling. By seeing the name, you guys might guess what exactly it is. So it's a kind, you might guess like automatically scaling process, right? Okay, so what is a scaling? What is the meaning of a scaling? Scaling is like adjusting, right? Okay, so here in this auto scaling, or by using the auto scaling, what exactly we have to do is we can adjust the resources as per the demand. To understand this better, let us try to discuss about a use case where exactly we have to use this. Then you can understand this auto scaling concept very easily. So I think every day we are using Amazon or a Flipkart online stores, right, to buy the required items and all. In the same way, or let us say, whenever they announce what we call this Great Indian Festival Sale or Big Billion Days, many people, right, when comparatively with the regular days, more people will access that online store. Keep that in mind. Okay, now let us say I'm planning to run an online store. Just I'm planning to run my online store similar to Amazon or Flipkart. So here, my analysis or my guess is Monday to Friday, I can expect maximum of 50 users at a time, or not at 50. Let us say maximum 75 users, or I can say concurrent users. But during the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I might expect 150 users also. I will expect 150 concurrent users who are accessing my online store. Now, so here I have a two different configurations. If my server is having 2 CPU and a 4 GB of a RAM, it can handle 100 users without any performance issues. Whenever more than 100 users are accessing my website, then my server will feel the load and the performance will be delayed. And with a 4 CPU and 8 GB of a RAM, my server can handle 200 users. Okay. Now, the question is, I'm going to host my online store on EC2 instance. I'm planning to host my online store on EC2 instance. Now, this is the first configuration set, and this is the second configuration set. While creating the EC2 instance, how many resources I have to choose? Like the first configuration or the second configuration? Which one I have to choose? With how many CPUs and how much RAM I need to create my EC2 instance for my online store, for my e-commerce website? Any guess or any analysis like why you are going to choose a 2 CPU or a 4 CPU? Okay. So what will happen if I choose a 2 CPU and 4 GB of a RAM? Monday to Friday, maximum 75 users or maximum 80 maximum. So no issues because the 2 CPU server can handle 100 users. But during Saturday and Sunday, 150 users cannot be handled by 2 CPU and 4 GB. So what I have to do for only Saturday and Sunday, I need to increase the size. I need to increase the size. Or if I choose server 1, I mean the configuration set 1, Saturday and Sunday, my users will face performance issues. So generally, as a beginner, what you will say, go with 4 CPU and 8 GB of RAM. That's perfect. If I go with 4 CPU and 8 GB of a RAM, what happens? There is no performance issues. There is no performance issues. But during Monday to Friday, 2 CPU and 4 GB is more than enough to handle the traffic, which means the other 2 CPU and the 4 GB of a RAM will be idle for the 5 days. But as we provisioned, as we created those resources, we have to pay for these idle resources also. Means we are using only 2 CPU and 4 GB of a RAM according to the load, but we have to pay for 4 CPU and 8 GB of RAM because we have provisioned that, which means wastage of money. Then one intelligent guy, what he said, okay, let's go with 2 CPU and 4 GB of RAM. In the midnight of Friday or early morning of Saturday, let's increase the size. We have seen, right? We know vertical scaling. What is the vertical scaling? Change the instance type from 2 CPU to 4 CPU. But what it requires a downtime. Means you need to shut down the EC2 instance, change the instance type, and then you need to start it, which might take minimum of 5 minutes of time. Means during that 5 minutes, nobody can access your online store. That's the first problem. The second problem, what if suddenly the load got increased on Wednesday or Thursday? We won't expect that, right? So in such cases, your online store cannot handle the traffic. That's why even on the Amazon also, sometimes you might see something went wrong kind of a message because the backend servers cannot handle the incoming traffic. To overcome this issue, Amazon introduced a service called auto scaling. Automatically, it will scale up and scale down. Scale up means increase the capacity. Scale down means reduce the capacity. How it works is initially we will create with only one server. Initially, we will create with one server, which can handle up to 100 users. Which can handle up to 100 users. So all the users are connecting to this particular server one. And we will configure a monitoring. We will create a monitoring thing which can monitor the CPU utilization. CPU utilization. Whenever the load is getting increased, the CPU utilization will go like 70, 80, 90, and it reaches 100, and your server cannot respond. Even on your machines, if you go to Task Manager, right click on the taskbar and go to the Task Manager. Here you can see the CPU utilization. Right now, my laptop is using just 10% CPU utilization. The moment once it reaches 70 or 80%, minimum 80%, you will observe the performance issues and all. So here, what we do is in the monitoring, we will create a CPU utilization, a kind of that is a metric in which we will set a threshold value. Threshold value means a kind of a borderline. I will say, I will create a policy, means whenever the CPU is greater than 70%, create a new EC2 instances. Scale up. Whenever the CPU is less than 70%, I will say scale down. Why to scale down? To reduce the charges. Why should I unnecessarily run the servers? So whenever more people are connecting to the server one, automatically the CPU increases and a new server will be created like this. But the question is how the users will be distributed. So here we use a load balancer. Whenever we use auto scaling, we use a load balancer. Automatically, it will distribute the traffic to the newly created EC2 instances. While creating the policy itself, we will configure that the newly created instances to be added to a specific target group so that automatically the traffic will be distributed. Whenever the CPU is less than 70%, it will start like, let us say, at the midnight, the CPU is, let us say, 30% only. Then what happens? This instance will be created. This instance will be created. Still the CPU is less than 30. This instance will be created, which means you don't have any server. That's why here we have a concept called minimum capacity and maximum capacity. We will set like this, which means even though the CPU is more than 70%, maximum it will create 5 only. It won't create more than 5. Or if I set 15, it will create maximum 50. Means we can restrict the maximum number of servers in the auto scale. And we will set minimum servers also. Means even though the CPU is less than 70%, it will always maintain the minimum number of servers. Because if there is no server, the user can't access your application, right? Okay, so let us write down few points about the auto scale. So auto scaling is the process of adjusting the capacity according to the demand, which means we can increase or reduce the resources with the help of auto scale. How it works is whenever there is an increase in the load, new instances will be created, and whenever there is no load, existing instances will be deleted. And to avoid all the instances from deletion, we can set a minimum capacity, which means the minimum capacity or minimum number of instances will run always irrespective of the demand. And we can set the maximum capacity so that auto scaling will not go beyond the maximum number of instances. Why? Sometimes something might get stuck in your server and the CPU will stuck at like 80% or 90% or somewhere. Then without any demand, it will create like 100,000 or something. Just to avoid that, we can set some number and we will stop the auto scaling at that particular number. So what are the components? We have multiple components we need to discuss. Or I can say terminology, what we should know. So here, auto scaling group. And a launch, or I can say, not terminology later we will discuss. Auto scaling contains two components. One is auto scaling group. The second one is launch a template. Earlier, we used to have a launch configuration, which is not existing anymore, which is the older version of a launch template, we can say. What are these? Auto scaling group defines when to create or delete the instances. Auto scaling group contains the information about when a new instance to be deleted or when an existing instance to be deleted. Or I can say, I will write down here, auto scaling group in the auto scaling group, we can configure when to create a new EC2 instance or when to create a new instance or when to delete an existing instance. How we can configure? This configuration can be done with the help of a scaling policy. This configuration can be done with the help of scaling policies. With the help of scaling policies. Just example, CPU utilization is 70%, right? In the auto scaling group, we will configure when to create. Whenever the CPU is more than 70%, create new instance. Whenever the CPU is less than 70%, delete the existing instance. That is what we are going to configure in the auto scaling group. And coming to the scaling policies, auto scaling supports different types of scaling policies. What are those? The first one is target tracking scaling policy. Second one is scheduled scaling policy, scheduled scaling policy, then manual scaling policy, and there is something called predictive scaling policy. Kind of a prediction. So in the target tracking scaling policy, we will set the CPU utilization, CPU at 70%, less than 70%, greater than 70%. We will set a target, and that auto scaling group will track that target utilization. According to that, a new instance will be created or existing instance will be deleted. Scheduling scaling policy means we will schedule, let us say recently Amazon Great Indian Festival happened, right? So what they do, so let us say sale begins on, let us say October 14th at morning, evening 8 p.m., right? They will set us, and that lasts for 7 days. What they do on October 14th at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., they will set that minimum servers to be 10. So automatically servers will be increased before getting the load. And they will schedule that on 21st evening 8 p.m. number of servers to be reduced. They will schedule irrespective of the load. Based on the schedule, automatically servers will be increased and reduced. Manual scaling policy means manually we need to increase the number of servers. Just we need to update the value. Predictive scaling policy means based on the last 10 days or 15 days usage, it will predict that in the next 1 hour, you might receive more number of users. Based on that, it will automatically perform the auto scaling. Okay, right. So here, the process of creating a new instance is known as scale up or scale out. Scale up or scale out. Why they call it as a scale out? So this is the existing server, right? A new instance will be created. Another a new instance will be created, which means it is scaling outside. It is scaling outside. That's why they call it as a scale out. Just give me a second, guys. Sorry. Just give me a minute. Okay. Did I share my screen? Are you guys able to see the screen? Yeah. Okay. It seems yes. Okay. In this auto-scaling process, minimum capacity is like the number of servers that running all the time, even there is no load. Like again, I say even there is no load. Maximum number of servers that can be running at peak load. It won't create more than the maximum capacity. Actual capacity means the number of instances that are running at that moment. The desired capacity. To understand this desired capacity, we need to understand this one. So I have a minimum capacity is a 2, max is a 5. There is something called actual and a desired. By default, actual will be 2. Why? Minimum is 2. So automatically 2 servers will be created. So actual will be 2. And it is monitoring the CPU for 70% of utilization. Whenever the CPU is more than at the initial stage, the desired also 2. Why? We set minimum 2, CPU is 40% only. So desired also 2 means requirement is 2, actual is 2. Whenever CPU is more than 70, then what auto scaling will do is desired will become 2 plus 1. It will increase the requirement to 2 plus 1, which means that will becomes a 3, right? That will becomes a 3. And here actual 2, desired is 3, means requirement is 3, but current servers are 2. Then auto scaling will create a new server, new instance to match the actual capacity with the desired capacity. It will become 3. Still the CPU is more than 70. Then what happens? This 3 will become 3 plus 1 and 4. And there is a difference between the desired and actual capacity. And auto scaling will match the actual capacity with the desired by creating a new one like this. Now the CPU is less than 40%. Now what happens? Auto scaling will identify that, okay, we don't need those many servers because CPU is less than 40. Reduce the desired capacity. Requirement will become -1, which means a 3. Now it will delete the 1 server, 3, and again -1, 2, again -1, but it won't happen. Why? Minimum is 2. So desired will always becomes minimum. I mean, desired will never go less than minimum number of servers. That's how the auto scaling goes on. So desired capacity means required number of instances based on the load. So how it works is initially we set the minimum, max, and actual capacity at the time of creating auto scale. At the time of creating auto scaling. Then whenever the load increases, auto scaling will change the desired capacity to +1. Then there is a difference between the actual capacity and the desired capacity, and auto scaling will match the actual capacity with the desired capacity by creating or deleting the instance. By creating or deleting the instance. To understand this better, let us write down an example, the one which we discussed. So assume we created auto scaling with the following configuration. So threshold is CPU is greater than 70%. Minimum capacity is a 2. Max capacity is a actual capacity will be 2, and then the desired capacity will becomes 2 at the initial stage, will becomes 2. Now here, whenever the CPU exceeds the 70% of utilization, then auto scaling increases the desired capacity to 2 plus 1, which is a 3. Now, actual capacity is 2 and the desired capacity is 3. Means there is a difference between the actual capacity and desired capacity. So auto scaling job is to match the actual capacity with the desired capacity. Actual capacity with the desired capacity. How it will do? It will create a new instance in the auto scaling to match the actual with desired capacity. Okay, so here I want to give you some small difference between these two. What is the difference between these two statements? Match the actual capacity with the desired capacity and desired capacity with actual capacity. So if you are matching, like here, actual is 2 and desired is 2. Okay, not this one. Okay, so here, actual is equal to 2 and desired is equal to 3. Now the question is, what is like matching the desired capacity with actual capacity? What is the meaning of this statement? So I'm matching the desired with actual. Means desired should be always actual. So nothing will happen. Just desired. Okay, my requirement will be 2. That's it. I can't afford 3, so my requirement is 2. So this is wrong. This statement is wrong. Always we will match actual to desired. Means actual is 2. Requirement is 3. Right? To match the 2 with 3, what we have to do? 2 plus 1 will become a 3. That is the difference between the actual capacity with the desired capacity or desired capacity with actual capacity. So always we match the actual capacity with the desired capacity. And always we use a load balancer along with the auto scale to distribute the traffic across all the newly created instances, or else it will not become automatic scaling, right? Automatically, the traffic will be distributed to the newly created instances. How it is possible? How the load balancer knows the newly created instances? Auto scaling will register the newly created instances to the same target group. We need to configure it. We need to configure that the newly created instances to be registered or to be added to which target group. Okay, still we are not yet done. Just we talked about the auto scaling group only. We have a launch template also, right? What is the launch template? there is a configurations, right? Launch template contains, so launch template contains the information about how to create the instances. Auto scaling group contains the information about when to. Launch template is how to. So I will show you. So earlier we used to have launch configuration, and the launch template is the newer version of launch configuration, or I can say launch template is replaced, or launch template is the newer version. We can say launch template is newer version, and you cannot see the launch configuration option in the AWS console. You can't see it. There's an outdated one. Okay. So what all we will include and everything we will write down. Okay. While doing the practical, just we will note down. Okay. First of all, to create an EC2 instance, how this auto scaling knows. So whenever a new instance is getting created, let us say online store, right? Let us say the online store. What exactly it requires? First of all, it requires an EC2 instance, right? In which it will have some CPU, RAM, then storage, hard disk, right? Storage. On top of that, it will have something called operating system, right? On top of that, you need to install the web server or whatever you need. On top of that, your online store is running, your website, right? For some time, forget about auto scaling. To set up this, what all you need first? First, you need to have an AMI. To create this EC2 instance, you need to choose the AMI. Then you need to choose a key pair, right? Then you need to choose instance type. And then what all? Security group, storage. What else we need? Apart from this, what are the mandatory things that you have to select? Tenancy model, like shared tenancy, dedicated tenancy, reserved instance, spot instance, which is the purchasing model. So who will inform, or how auto scaling knows that which AMI you need, which key pair, which instance type? These all are the things which we will include in the launch template. Not only this, VPC, in which subnet or in which availability zone you would like to create, right? And which load balancer, which target group, not the load balancer, which target group you would like to use, everything, right? And let us say, based on these information, a new EC2 instance got created, but it doesn't have your online store code, right? That's why what we do is, while doing the practical, what we do is, first we will create the EC2 instance manually. We will create the EC2 instance manually. We will create the target group and everything, and we will set up everything. We will set up everything what you need, and we will make your online store up and running. We will make the online store up and running. And from this, we will create AMI. We will create AMI. Once the AMI is created, we don't need this. Then this AMI contains everything: operating system, server, your application code, softwares, everything, right? Everything the AMI contains. Now we will use these two components: launch template and auto scaling group. In the launch template, we will include the AMI, we will include the key pair, we will include what instance type, what security group, how much storage you need, what tenancy model, what purchasing model, right? And what target group, everything we will include in the launch template so that the launch template knows that how to create. And then in the auto scaling group, we will include when, and we will include VPC and when like threshold values, auto scaling policy, whether to use a target tracking policy or a predictive policy or a scheduled policy or manual policy, that we will include in the auto scaling group. And then we will use load balancer. The load balancer is a mandatory. If you don't have a load balancer, you can't distribute the traffic across multiple instances. Okay. So have you got the concept? Once we complete the practical, you will get more clarity on that. First of all, at least, were you able to understand what auto scaling is and what is the purpose of the auto scaling? Or any questions? While doing the practical, we will write down what exactly we will configure in the launch template and what exactly we will configure in the auto scaling group. That we will write down while doing the practical. As of now, are you guys clear or any questions? Yes, at the initial stage, beginning at already I mentioned, right? At the initial, when at the moment while we are creating, actual and desired capacities are going to be the same. Okay, so now let us write down a few things. Set up auto scaling for your web application or a simple website. What all we need to do is the first step is create a Linux EC2 instance, or even you can create Windows also, that doesn't matter. Linux EC2 instance and set up and host a simple website. Host a simple website. Like yesterday also we did, right? The same way you have to do. Then next, create a target group with no targets, or okay, not this one. Create an AMI from the above Linux EC2 instance and terminate once the AMI is available. Means we don't need that anymore. Then create a target group with no targets. Why no targets? We don't have any instances yet, right? Because the instances to be created by the auto scaling. Create target group with no targets. Then create an application load balancer and connect with the above target group. Now create launch configuration. Sorry, we don't have a launch configuration. Create launch a template. I think, wait a second. As per this, we don't need this AMI. While creating the launch template itself, automatically it creates AMI and all the things. AMI is required for the launch configuration. While creating a launch template, the launch template itself contains an AMI. Okay, create a launch template. Create a launch template from the above EC2 instance. Or first also you can create it. You can make this as a step B. Then E, create auto scaling group using the above launch template. While doing this, minimum capacity is going to be the 2. Minimum capacity is 2. Max capacity 5. Actual capacity obviously will become minimum capacity. Desired capacity is going to be 2. And threshold at CPU is greater than 70%. And use target tracking policy. Once we are done with this, then I will automatically shows like how to do a manual scaling, how to create a scheduled scaling, right? All these things we will cover in the same session. Okay. This is what we have to do, but we'll go step by step. I think everybody knows this part, right? How to create a Linux EC2 instance and how to host a sample website and all the things. Now, what I do is at least let us complete this one. Okay, this part, let us complete in the today's session, like creating the instance and host a simple website. But this time, what I do is already we know how to use a user data, right? User data concept somewhere. Do you guys remember this one? User data. At the time of creating the EC2 instance, we can provide user data so that everything will be ready. Let me use that. Says, okay, let me use this user data script. And let me log into our Amazon account, go to EC2. Okay, let me go to Northern Virginia region. Instances, launch instances. I will say temp server, temporary server only just to create template. Amazon Linux, T2.micro, key pair. Yep, selected the key pair. Existing security group. I need Linux, SSH, HTTP, HTTPS. Go to advanced details at the bottom. You have to write down this. Hello, this is AWS. Let me say AutoScaling. Click on launch instance means the website will display a message called hello, this is AWS AutoScale. That's it. And how to check? Just check the public IP, access the public IP. If you are able to see the web page, which means everything is ready. So when it will be ready is first the EC2 instance to be created. Once the EC2 instance got created, whatever the user data we have provided, that will be automatically executed. That will be automatically executed. Once it is done, the website is accessible. So I recommend you to create the AMI or launch template once the website is accessible. And you have to wait until the status checks 3x3 checks passed. The message means your system is fully ready. So I think you guys know the AMI, right? Anyways, I will show you one more time how to create the AMI and all. I think we have created AMI in the EC2 session. Again, I will show you if I will show you like how to create. Just select EC2 instance, go to actions, image, create image. That's it. The backend image will be created. Still, it is initializing. It is ready. We haven't done anything. Just we provided the script, user data, and or else what we have to do? Log into the EC2 instance and execute each and every command manually. And here, how to create the launch template is generally select the EC2 instance. You can go to actions, image and templates. We have already seen create image, right? AMI creation. And this is what we have to do. Create a template from instance. So whatever is configured in that instance, everything will be included into the launch template. So here, creating a launch template allows you to create a saved instance configuration that can be reused shared and launched at a later time. Okay. Right. So how to do that? Launch template name. I can say my auto scaling template, just a name. Template version description. I will say prod version for my reference. Auto scaling guidance means, are you creating this launch template for auto scaling? If yes, select this checkbox so that they will guide you. See here, the moment once you select it, application OS images, which is mandatory. Like the required things will be displayed. Okay, so now I think we can't do that. We can't complete the practical in the today's session. Just my mistake here. Even though we are using a launch template, create an AMI from the above instance once it is ready, and then terminate. That is required. AMI is required. Okay. Let me create the AMI. Let me create the AMI. But I recommend you should create the AMI once the status checks is complete. Because at this phase, if I create, something might be configuring in the backend, some incomplete configuration or something that will be included into the AMI. I don't want to take any risk in such cases. That's why I will wait and I will make sure that everything is ready and then only I will proceed. Okay, so as of now, any questions? What exactly we are going to perform and all? Any questions? So AMI also I will create in the today's session only because you guys are aware, right? What is AMI and all. But launch template that we will see in the next session. I don't want to make that today because that takes minimum 30 minutes of time. So shall we have a session tomorrow? Because in this week, like we have missed 1 or 2 sessions, right? Monday was a holiday, like a festival. Shall we have session tomorrow so that we can complete the auto scaling? Okay. Okay, then let's have a session tomorrow also so that we can complete the practicals for auto scaling. The reason is if we discuss theory today and after 2 days, if we go with the practical, half of the theory you might forget, right? So let's continue tomorrow also. But let me complete the AMI process today and then we can close the session for today. Okay, is this ready? The EC2 instance? Yeah, 2 by 2 checks passed. Everything is ready. Now, how to create the AMI? Select the EC2 instance from which you would like to create the AMI, actions, image and templates, and create image. Image name, I will say I will say online store. Any name that doesn't matter. Image description. Okay, so everything ready. Let me click on create image. That's it. It will create the image. Where to check whether the AMI is ready or not? Go to AMIs, and here you can check the AMI. AMI name is my online store, and the status is pending. At this stage, please do not terminate the EC2 instance because your AMI is not yet ready. If you delete the EC2 instance, the source is missing from where it should create or it should get all the data. So I recommend, it is a mandatory to wait until the status is available. Once the status is available, there is no connection between the EC2 instance and the AMI image. You can terminate that EC2 instance. Still, you will get the AMI and all. Okay, so it will take like 5 to 10 minutes of time. Let's keep it running. I will terminate that EC2 instance later once the AMI is ready. Okay, right. So in the next, so we done with the basic setup, setting up the EC2 instance with your online store. Actually, we don't have an online store, but just a kind of an online store. We assume that basic website is an online store, and we created the AMI. Then we will create the target group, but we don't have any targets to register, right? So empty target group, and the targets will be added by auto scaling automatically. Then we create load balancer, and that load balancer will be connected with the target group. Then we need to create a launch template from this EC2 instance. Then auto scaling group. While creating, we will note down the components or the configure. I can say launch template contains, and we will write down all the things. And auto scaling group contains. We will write down the list here. We check each and every component, and we will write down the list here. Okay. Right. So any questions? Okay, so if you guys are clear, let us stop the session here and let's continue to, even though tomorrow is Saturday, let us continue tomorrow and we can complete this auto scaling part.